Welcome to the Baptist Broadcast. Thank you for tuning in here on YouTube or wherever you're coming in at Anchor.fm, iTunes, Spotify. Hey guys, I've got a newsletter. I have started a newsletter. This is a good way, newsletters, or a good way to communicate with those who are frequent readers. And so I have a newsletter, and it has both free and paid options. Of course, if you subscribe to the premium subscription on the newsletter, which you can find just down, just down here, right here. Just go to joshsummer.substack.com. And of course, there's all sorts of perks and things for signing up to the paid subscription, which is only $45 for a year. I brought that down as low as I could have. Substack makes you charge at least $5 a month, but you can charge less than that at the yearly rate. So I brought it down to $45 a year, and you'll get discussion questions on the weekly that you can interact with other paid subscribers on, and I'll send those out. You'll get the newsletter, of course, and you will not get the newsletter that everyone else gets. You'll get that too, but you'll get a newsletter also that will include links to exclusive videos that nobody has access to except for the paid subscribers. So check that out, and if you don't want to pay for it, no big deal. Just get the free subscription. You'll get all the normal content. You'll get the articles that I post on my website will be sent out via newsletter, and you'll get those. And sometimes you'll get maybe some sound bites or some podcast material or some video material that non-subscribers will not get. I haven't decided what to do with that quite yet. So it's just a convenient way to know when something new has been published on the website and when something new has come out, either video, podcast, or blog. So what I want to do today is I want to first tell you to subscribe to the channel. Click down below, subscribe, click the red button, click the bell for continued notifications. That helps you get the content when it's published on YouTube, and it also helps me get this very important information out that we're about to talk about today, which is Augustine. It's Augustine. It's actually the doctrine of God as it relates to Augustine. One of the things that I keep noticing is that the boogeyman in this conversation has quickly become a moniker, Thomism. Thomism is, of course, the boogeyman, and Thomism is one toe into Roman Catholicism. If you'd ask a lot of these guys, James White just said in a recent dividing line that, it's all connected. Everything that Thomas believed, it's all connected. And so if you believe some of Thomas, you must believe all of Thomas. And that's just simply not true. Some things are necessary to Thomas's theology proper. Some things are not. His version of the Eucharist is not necessary. In fact, I would say that his version of the Eucharist departs in some respects. Although I think that people misunderstand Thomas when they read him on the Eucharist. But it does not flow necessarily from his doctrine of God. And neither does it flow necessarily from the metaphysical distinction that he makes between substance and accidents. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. And they think that, well, if you adopt Thomas's theology proper, then you must adopt his ecclesiology, you must adopt his sacramentology, and all of this other stuff that we would obviously disagree with Thomas concerning. But I think if people understood that Thomism, when we say Thomism, we're not talking about anything that originated with Thomas. I mean, it's not anything that originated with Thomas any more than Calvinism is something that originated with Calvin. And so a lot of these guys are making the same objections that Arminians make against Calvinists. They say, well, your theology started with Calvin. Therefore, it's a man-made doctrine. Therefore, it's heresy. Therefore, you shouldn't believe it. Right? And Calvinists here, self-professed Calvinists here, are objecting against so-called Thomism using the same kind of tactic. And it's just very, the optics are very bad. It just looks very sloppy. It looks like you don't know what you're talking about. And people see that. People watch. And you can reply and respond to that. You can say, well, I've read Thomas for 5 years or 3 years or whatever. Look, time will tell, and your readership will tell, and your audience will ultimately judge whether or not you are staying on top of these issues as you claim to be doing. And so what I wanted to talk about today is how Thomism is not most certainly not exclusive to Thomas in the historical scheme of things. And it certainly did not start with Thomas. And I think if we understood Thomism really to be the aspects of Thomism that Christians, that Reformed Christians have believed and do believe, are nothing different, diverse, disjointed from, discontinuous from Augustinian theology. And if you just read Augustine's work on the Trinity, you get to chapter 5, and he makes some heavy qualifications when he's talking about some of the difficulties with the Trinity. What you'll find is Thomas's precedent for using some of the language he did with regard to who God is substantially, essentially, naturally. Thomas's immutability, his doctrine of immutability, what Jeff Johnson calls immovability, it sits on the shoulders of Augustine. And I think we understood that nothing novel in terms of the doctrine of God itself is found in Thomas. Now, Thomas does go about explaining some aspects of the doctrine of God that I think actually is helpful in terms of increasing our understanding of God and theology proper, and then also the doctrine of the Trinity. And he employs categories to help us think more clearly about that. But this is really no different than Augustine employing certain categories to help us think about the doctrine of God, and to help us think about other aspects of theology. And he employs categories that Plato used, that Aristotle used, that are found within the broader Platonic tradition. And it doesn't mean that Augustine is taking Plato's thought as it is abstracted from anything Christian, as it is abstracted from anything revelatory, and dropping it into Christianity and trying to smush Christianity into Platonic terms. That's not what's going on. In fact, when we use categories such as essence, nature, when we use categories such as even person, and categories like that, form, right, matter, cause, when we're engaging in using these categories, we would say that we're using these categories as Christians within the realm, or within the general traditional milieu of the Platonic tradition, and that's not because the concepts represented by these categories are Platonic in originality. It's not because they originated from Plato or Aristotle or any of them, but it's because these terms have affected Western civilization so much that we've been born into and brought up into that milieu, and it's been that Western philosophical milieu that has given us the terms that we need to talk about the concepts that have already been in existence. Nobody invented the concepts, right? Obviously nobody invented God. Nobody invented the doctrine of the Trinity, and yet we use language to improve the way in which we think and speak about God. Some of that language is found in Scripture. Some of it isn't. The word Trinity, not found in the Scripture, right? But it represents a biblical concept. The word essence, you're not going to find that in the Scripture. And if you do find a word that is similar to it, you're not going to find it used in the way that we use it with regard to the doctrine of God and the persons of the Trinity. Subsistence, you're not going to find that. Relation, you're not going to find that. Modal distinction, you're not going to find that, right? But these are all words that help us as finite creatures talk better about the God who is revealed to us in the book of nature and the book of Scripture. So we need to understand that when we talk about Thomism, we're using that term to speak to a deeper, more a more archaic and a more biblical concept than many think. All right, so we're not talking about something that originated with Thomas. We're not talking about something that Thomas invented when we use the word Thomism, any more than we're talking about something Calvin invented when we use the word Calvinist. Right? These are just terms to distinguish doctrinal distinctives. And so when we talk about Thomism, we're actually not talking about, especially when we talk about Thomism in relationship to the doctrine of God, we're not talking about anything different than Augustinian theology proper. And I'll give you an example. I posted this on my page, and I could give you more examples. And the place you want to go to is Augustine's work on the Trinity, on the Holy Trinity, and you want to read chapter 5. But he says this. Where is it? Let me see if I can't find it. Here we are. He is, however, without a doubt, and this is Augustine, a substance. He's talking about God. He is, however, without a doubt, a substance, or if it be better so to call it, an essence, which the Greeks call ousia. For as wisdom is so called from the being wise, and knowledge from knowing, so from being comes that which we call essence. And who is there that is more than he who is said to his servant Moses, I am that I am, and thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel, he who is hath sent me unto you. But other things that are called essences or substances admit of accidents, whereby a change, whether great or small, is produced in them. But there can be no accident of this kind in respect to God, and therefore he who is God is the only unchangeable substance or essence, to whom certainly being itself, whence comes the name of essence, most especially and most truly belongs. For that which is changed does not retain its own being, and that which can be changed, although it be not actually changed, is able not to be that which it had been. And hence, that which not only is not changed, but also cannot at all be changed, alone falls most truly, without difficulty or hesitation, under the category of being. Augustine on the Trinity, that's chapter 5, and that's a tongue twister. But let me tell you something that might shock you if you haven't been involved in this conversation. There are men who are denying this statement, and they are putting motion in God. They are putting change in the will of God. They say, well, if God can affect change outside of himself, he must change in himself. And they're putting that in God, in se, or ad intra, that is in God himself. And so they're not denying Thomism, they're denying Augustinianism, right? And in denying Augustinianism, I would say they're just denying apostolic Christianity as it appears in the scriptures, as it was put together and repeated in the creedal orthodoxy of Nicaea, Athanasius, the Apostles' Creed, Chalcedon, and they are denying this fundamental reality of the unchanging God that appears to us in Malachi 3:6. It comes to us in the New Testament in James. We see it back in Numbers. God is not a man that he should change his mind. God does not change. Therefore, Jacob, you shall not be consumed. There is no variation or shadow of turning in him. All good gifts come from him. So, be aware that men are denying this fundamental reality of theology proper, and we should stand strong and defend it. Not only is the immutability of God, as it's properly construed by those like Augustine and Thomas, biblical, but it's absolutely essential to understanding the scriptures as a whole within their proper context. It is the unchangeable God who revealed these things to us. And because of that, the scriptures will never become obsolete. The scriptures will never become something that is not correspondent to reality. The scriptures will never become ineffective. They will never become inaccurate. because they are grounded in and caused by and revealed by a God who is unchanging in himself. All right, so if this episode was helpful, again, please hit subscribe, give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to check out the newsletter right here, joshsummer.substack.com. Subscribe to that. Be there, be square. I will see you then. God bless.